Happy Sunday, Virgo. I hope you're doing great. Today, today is your day, Virgo. So listen carefully. Uh, you you've been carrying tension in your shoulders for so long, you forgot what relaxed feels like, haven't you? Managing everything, tracking every detail, staying 3 steps ahead of potential problems. And something's about to crack through all that vigilance with news so unexpectedly positive, it's going to catch you completely off guard, making you smile, that huge, uncontrolled smile you rarely allow yourself, because usually you're too busy analyzing whether good things are actually good or just problems you haven't identified yet. Okay, Virgo, let me decode what's crystallizing in the relief frequencies surrounding your existence right now. The first thing breaking through your carefully maintained composure is news that solves specific problem you've been quietly managing. You're probably dealing with something you haven't been complaining about publicly because you hate seeming like you can't handle your life. Health concern you've been monitoring, financial stress you've been navigating, relationship uncertainty you've been tolerating, work situation you've been enduring. You might be getting information that this thing you've been carrying, this weight you convinced yourself wasn't that heavy because you're strong enough to manage it, is actually resolving. And the relief of not having to manage it anymore is going to hit you like physical sensation, like dropping bag you've been carrying for miles without realizing how much it was costing you to hold. Here's what you're actually tracking in your concrete circumstances: good news arriving through official channels. You're probably not getting vague positive vibes, you're receiving actual communication with specifics. Test results, contract approval, acceptance letter, financial confirmation, someone telling you explicitly what's happening rather than making you interpret ambiguous signals. You might be experiencing relief specific to your Virgo nature of finally having clear information, where you can stop spinning through worst case scenarios because you actually know the outcome now, where you can stop contingency planning because the thing you were preparing for isn't going to happen. And that cognitive rest from not having to manage uncertainty anymore is almost as valuable as the actual good news itself. What's detonating in the validation circuits is recognition for work you've been doing that you thought was invisible. You're probably about to receive acknowledgement for contributions you made that nobody seemed to notice, project you executed flawlessly without fanfare, help you provided without seeking credit, standards you maintained even when nobody was checking. And having someone actually see the care and precision you bring to everything is going to touch something tender. You might be experiencing this as professional recognition, as personal appreciation from someone whose opinion matters, as tangible reward that reflects your actual value. And for someone who's used to being taken for granted, while less competent people get praised for mediocre work, this acknowledgement is going to feel like finally being seen accurately instead of being used invisibly. This reflection demands you examine how much of your exhaustion comes from doing excellent work nobody notices and whether receiving this recognition is going to help you advocate for yourself more effectively going forward, or whether you're going to immediately minimize it and go back to over functioning without adequate compensation. You're probably noticing early signals that good news is approaching even before official confirmation arrives. You might be experiencing subtle shifts in energy conversation that went better than expected, someone's tone sounding more positive, timeline accelerating in favorable direction. And your analytical mind is trying to determine whether you're reading too much into these signals or whether your pattern recognition is accurately detecting movement before it's announced. You could be toggling between cautious optimism and protective skepticism, wanting to hope but not wanting to be disappointed. If you're interpreting neutral signals as positive ones, and that internal war between allowing yourself to believe and protecting yourself from potential letdown is exhausting you almost as much as the original stressor was. What's also emerging is good news connected to your health or physical well being. You're probably dealing with body finally cooperating after period where it's been problematic, symptom resolving, test coming back clear, treatment working better than expected, energy returning. And for Virgo, who tends to push through physical discomfort rather than adequately addressing it, having relief arrive feels like being granted permission to stop being so relentlessly functional. You might be experiencing your nervous system downregulating for first time in months, sleep improving, chronic tension releasing, digestive issues settling, and recognizing how much stress you were holding physically only becomes apparent when your body finally feels safe enough to let go of it. What's particularly striking about what I'm tracking is the news making you smile isn't what you'd expect. You're probably not receiving breakthrough in area you've been obsessively focused on that's still processing through normal timeline. But good news is arriving from sideways direction you weren't watching. You might be getting positive development in domain you'd mentally written off as unchangeable, receiving gift from source you didn't anticipate, experiencing improvement in relationship you'd resigned yourself to accepting as it was. And that element of surprise is part of what creates the big smile because you're not defended against joy in this particular area since you weren't tensed in anticipation waiting for it. You're probably experiencing good news that has cascading effects. You might be receiving one piece of positive information that unlocks other stuck situations approval, that allows you to make other decisions you've been postponing. Resolution that frees up mental energy you can redirect to opportunities you couldn't focus on before. And recognizing that this isn't isolated good news, but catalyst that shifts multiple areas of your life is making impact feel bigger than single development. You could be tracking domino effect where one thing falling into place makes five other things suddenly possible is less than has hone. Zero hash is greater than, and that multiplication of positive outcomes from single piece of good news is what transforms this from that's nice into this changes everything. What's threading through the relief patterns is you're going to receive validation that your judgment was correct about something. You're probably about to get confirmation that decision you made despite others' skepticism was right choice. That boundary you set despite pressure to relent was necessary. That instinct you followed, even though you couldn't fully articulate why was accurate. And having external reality prove that yes, you were reading situation correctly is going to quiet that perpetual self-doubt that makes you second guess yourself constantly. You might be experiencing vindication, not in petty I told you so way, but in deep relief of knowing you can trust yourself, that your careful analysis produces reliable conclusions, that overthinking actually serves you sometimes instead of just making you anxious. This reflection demands you examine what happens to your confidence when you stop doubting yourself as default position, and whether receiving this confirmation of your judgment is going to make you trust your instincts more readily, or whether you're going to treat it as exception and continue requiring external validation before you believe your own perceptions. You're probably noticing news arriving that removes obstacle you thought was permanent. You might be experiencing situation you'd accepted as immovable, suddenly shifting person who was blocking you changing their position, policy that was limiting you being revised, financial constraint that was restricting you being eliminated is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than, and discovering that what you'd adapted your entire life around wasn't actually fixed is going to create this weird mix of relief and anger. You could be experiencing joy that problem is solved while simultaneously frustrated that you wasted months or years working around limitation that apparently could have changed anytime. And processing those conflicting emotions without letting anger contaminate your relief is requiring you to just accept that timing was what it was and celebrate that change is happening now instead of dwelling on why it didn't happen sooner. What's also combusting is good news about something you tried and thought failed. You're probably going to discover that effort you made that seemed to produce no results was actually working the whole time application you submitted and forgot about getting accepted. Seed you planted months ago, finally sprouting. Person you helped remembering and reciprocating. And having proof that your actions matter, even when you can't see immediate results, is going to shift how you think about persistence. You might be learning that your Virgo tendency to give up on things if they don't show quick returns is actually preventing you from benefiting from efforts that need more time to develop. And receiving delayed positive outcome from something you'd mentally filed under waste of time is teaching you that your timeline isn't the only relevant timeline. The smile generation patterns suggest this news is going to make you laugh at yourself. You're probably going to experience that specific flavor of relief where you realize how much unnecessary stress you created through worst case scenario planning. Discovering thing you were anxious about wasn't even happening. Learning that problem you were bracing for solved itself. Finding out a person you thought was upset with you was actually fine is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than. And recognizing how much energy you burned catastrophizing is going to make you shake your head at your own tendency to borrow trouble. You might be getting caught in that laugh cry response where you're so relieved you're actually emotional about it. And that vulnerability, that unguarded expression of feeling something good without immediately analyzing it, is what the big smile is actually about. Not just the news itself, but your own capacity to receive it without defensive cynicism. What's significant is you're approaching news that gives you permission to stop trying so hard. You're probably receiving information that means you can ease off the relentless effort you've been maintaining, quota you were trying to meet, getting lowered, standard you were holding yourself to, being revealed as unnecessarily strict person you were trying to impress, telling you you're already enough, and discovering that you've been operating under pressure that wasn't even real is going to create this huge exhale. You might be experiencing permission to be more human, less perfect, more forgiving of your inevitable mistakes. And that shift from self imposed perfection toward self compassion is news. Your nervous system has been desperately needing even more than any external good news could provide. This reflection demands you examine how much suffering you create through standards nobody's actually requiring you to meet, and whether good news about external situation is going to help you ease internal pressure you place on yourself, or whether you're going to find new impossible standard to torture yourself with the moment this one gets resolved. um, you're probably experiencing news connected to money that creates breathing room. You might be receiving refund, reimbursement, payment, raise, bonus, debt forgiveness, reduced expense, something that shifts your financial situation from tight to tolerable. And while the amount might not be life changing in absolute terms, the psychological relief of not having to stress about that particular financial concern anymore is disproportionate to actual number. You could be experiencing yourself able to say yes to small pleasures you've been denying yourself, able to stop checking your account balance obsessively, able to spend without calculating whether purchase means you can't afford something else. And that freedom from financial hypervigilance is making you feel almost lightheaded because you've been clenched so tight for so long. What I'm witnessing in the joy activation zones is you're going to receive news that validates your worth to someone who matters. You're probably approaching a moment where a person whose opinion you care about expresses genuine appreciation, respect, or affection in ways they haven't before. Boss giving you recognition beyond standard feedback. Friend telling you how much you mean to them. Romantic interest being explicit about their feelings. And hearing someone articulate your value instead of just assuming they see it is going to crack through your typical deflection of compliments. You might be experiencing yourself actually receiving praise instead of immediately minimizing it. Actually letting yourself feel seen and valued instead of rushing to change subject. And that acceptance of being appreciated is character growth that's as significant as whatever prompted the appreciation. The relief cascades suggest you're experiencing news that means you don't have to make hard choice you've been dreading. You're probably approaching situation where dilemma you've been agonizing over resolves itself, person making decision, so you don't have to, circumstances shifting. So both options become possible instead of having to choose, third alternative appearing that you didn't know existed. and being released from torture of choosing between two bad options or two good options that felt mutually exclusive is going to feel like cosmic mercy. You might be recognizing how much bandwidth that decision was consuming, how much mental real estate you were using to weigh pros and cons. And having that energy freed up because you don't have to decide is going to make you realize how exhausting it is to live in your Virgo brain sometimes. What's also emerging is good news about relationship you care about improving. You're probably going to experience communication that clears up misunderstanding, apology that addresses hurt you've been carrying, gesture that demonstrates someone's commitment, conversation that establishes better dynamic. And having relational stress ease is going to affect your entire system because when your relationships are tense, you can't fully relax anywhere. You might be experiencing someone meeting you halfway finally, someone demonstrating they actually heard you, someone changing behavior instead of just promising to change. And that follow through, that demonstration of care through action rather than just words, is news your heart needed to be able to trust this connection again. This reflection demands you examine whether you've been holding relationships to such high standards that normal human imperfection registers as betrayal, and whether good news about relationship improving is going to help you hold people more gently, or whether you're going to immediately raise the bar to new impossible level now that they've proven they can meet the old one. So, as good news approaches that's going to make you smile, that huge, genuine smile, practice letting yourself just feel good without immediately searching for the problem hiding inside the positive development. You're probably already preparing to find the catch, to identify the hidden cost, to figure out what this means you have to do now, or what new problem this creates. But what if, for once, you just let something be purely good? What if you let yourself be happy about good news without immediately converting happiness into new task list? Trust that the smile is coming and it's going to feel unfamiliar because you've been so serious for so long. You're probably going to be almost shocked by your own capacity for uncomplicated joy, by how good it feels to just be happy without analyzing whether you should be or whether it will last. That smile, that big unguarded smile that takes over your whole face, that's your real self, emerging from under all the careful management and protective analysis. And letting that self out more often might be the best news of all. The good news is real. It's coming. It's going to make you smile big. And you deserve it. Not because you earned it through perfect execution of all your responsibilities, not because you managed everything flawlessly, but just because good things happen sometimes and you're allowed to receive them without immediately converting them into new source of stress is less than has home. Zero hash is greater than. Let yourself smile. Let yourself feel the relief. Let yourself just be happy for a moment without any conditions or caveats or qualifications. You've been carrying so much for so long. It's okay to put some of it down. The good news is giving you permission. Take it. Smile. You've earned the right to just feel good. And nothing about this moment requires you to immediately figure out what you need to do with it, or fix about it, or improve about it. Just smile. That's enough. You're enough. The news is good. Let that be the whole story for once. Take care, Virgo.